All right. Well, welcome to the crossing. Thank you so much for joining us online. We are in part 3 of our series Christian, and it might seem like kind of a bizarre, and I realize I'm really probably throwing a damper on you're kind of in confusion. So when we're done with the series, you can go back to calling yourself Christian. It's fine. I just want you to know the difference between just being Christian and really in our culture, you can define that any way that you want to. But when you begin to really dial in and see what Jesus actually called his followers, he never called them Christian. That came way, way later. He called them disciples. And I saw a Facebook post this last week of this challenge, and there was an admittance going, whew, I mean, if I just put that out there that I want to be a disciple of Jesus, I mean, that is so much more defining. That the accountability level to that is way higher than just calling yourself Christian, because, I mean, if you just affiliate with a Christian religion, well, I mean, you can hide behind that and live however you want to live. But to be a disciple of Jesus, to be a follower of Jesus, it's so much different. And what's interesting to me is in that song that we just heard, the evidence of your goodness, God, is so unbelievable in my life. And yet, I think from a day-to-day, standpoint, sometimes we doubt that, right? I mean, sometimes it's like, God, man, I have it so rough. I have it so rough. It's so bad. I mean, life is just, we just have it so rough. And I think one of the reasons why we hide behind, or maybe our culture that we live in is breaking down, is because of this dynamic that I kind of want to tease out, the fact that actually prosperity, we have been so prosperous in this nation. We have been so prosperous, but we have forgotten who has given it to us. And do you know what the greatest enemy of prosperity is? The greatest enemy of prosperity is prosperity. Prosperity is the greatest enemy to prosperity, but it's not because of what you think. And that's kind of what I want to get down to. And so if you're just like, I don't know, Eric. I mean, yeah, are we really prosperous in this nation? I mean, really? Okay, so let me go through some history with you. Did any of you come to the Life Center this morning in this? No one. No one showed up in this, right? You would have had to get up way earlier to make it by 9:30 if you were going to come in this. It's like, okay, I didn't have to catch any horses. I didn't have to feed any horses. I didn't have to harness any horses. I didn't have to get the wagon out. I didn't have to get the children out of bed. I didn't have to ride on a buckboard the entire way. I mean, you would have had to rethink everything if you're coming this morning. And see, this is all within the last 100 years. All within the last 100 years. See, and then because of some prosperity, all of a sudden we had cars that we could go in. Now, the roads were horrible, but we had cars. They didn't have any heat. They didn't have any air, but at least I didn't have to catch the horse and feed it, right? I mean, it was better. I mean, can you imagine going, having all of the streets in Gothenburg look like this? Or you're going to go to the city. You're going to go, we're going to packing up the kids. Kids, we're going to go to the city. We're going to the city, and it rains on the way to the city. And now, Mom, you have to go across this street with all of your children. Have you ever thought of how thankful you are for concrete? Why do we have concrete? And it's cost millions and millions and millions of dollars to have concrete everywhere we go. My grandma remembers when Highway 30 was a dirt road. We don't even think about it, do we? We don't think that we get to drive on concrete, guys. That's amazing. That's, up until the last one, I mean, this is what you had to deal with. And now, And now we get to drive in this. It even heats your tush and cools it off. I mean, you push a button and it just goes. Oh, life is so hard. It's so tough. Not very prosperous. See, we forget how good we have it. What about farming? What about farming? This is in the 30s. This is less than 100 years ago. Plowing corn, 2 feet at a time. Anybody want to sign up? Yeah, sign me up for that. That's great. You know? And then we went along to this. Whoa, now I get to go 4.5 feet wide instead of 2. I'm really covering some ground. See, my great-grandfather, he did it this way when he came, was south of Roscoe. And then he had a steam tractor. It's like, woohoo, we are uptown. Steam tractor now. And then remember this? Remember what this is called? Anybody? The Johnny Popper. All right? And if you were against green, you had the Farmall. That was fine. Wasn't a bad tractor, right? The old Johnny Popper, And I was thinking in a couple of weeks ago, hey, anybody want to get up and feed on the Johnny Popper? Any volunteers? 30 below? Anybody? You want to sit your tush right here on this seat that's just strapped to a hunk of iron? Nobody? Because this is what we have now. It drives itself. The seat goes this way and forward and backwards and down and around. It's like, good grief, we have it so good. But we forget, don't we? And, I felt bad for Andy and David Jobman, so I had to throw a red in here. So here you go, Job. Oh, well, there you go. There you go, a little red tractor for the Jobmans. And I don't know what it is, but the ranchers seem to like the red ones better too. I don't know. So what about construction? Here's how you used to cut the boards. By hand. I look at my barn that was built in 1912. Every board was cut with one of these. And then, these are the most evil things I have ever seen in my life. These were the old screws. They all had a straight screwdriver. They were big screws. I don't know why they did this, but I'm telling you what, they used to put beeswax on the screws just so they could get them in. And they were all put in by hand. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And I know what your women are thinking, right? So I went there. Hey, want to do some wash? Really? Want to do some wash for everybody? The old washboard? All the teenagers are like, so that's why they call it washboard on the road. I didn't know that. See, and here's the upgrade. Wow, that's great. And now we have stuff. I mean, it's up. It's got side load, top load, whatever load you want, and just throw it in. You don't even have to bend over anymore. You just stick it on in there. See, prosperity is the greatest enemy of prosperity, but it's not because of what you think. It's because it lulls us to sleep. And it makes us think that we can do life without God. See, when life gets so easy, we go, and it's kind of strange because in our culture, for whatever reason, we've gone down two paths. We either think, you know what, I look at everyone else beside me on both sides of me, and they're doing a little bit better than me, and they're doing a little bit better than me. So you know what? I feel like I'm the victim, and they owe me. They should give me theirs. Or you think, you know what? I'm self-made. I can do it myself. Thank you very much. Both of those don't require God. If they just need to give me theirs, then I don't need God to provide it for me, and I don't even need to work for it. They just need to give me theirs. And if I think, you know what, I can just be self-made and I can do it on my own, thank you very much, I don't need you, God, and things are going so well, prosperity gets us to a place where we think we don't need God any longer. And that's exactly where we find ourselves in our culture right now. It has been so good. It's been so good that we have come to a place where we realize we think we could do this without God. Do you know what happens to a culture that thinks it no longer needs God? It rots. It decomposes. It stinks. And see, in our culture, as Christians, you can hide behind Christian all day long and say, you know what? Church is just somewhere I go every now and then. And really, life is so good. I just want my kids to have it just as good as I have it, or better than I have it. So culture says, hey, if that's what you want, and that's what everybody wants, right? So here's the flow. Everyone's going this way. And you got to put your kids in all this stuff and put your kids in all of that stuff. And you know what? It's creeping in on Sundays and your time with God and the church and the culture. And you're like, yeah. You know what? That's fine. We need a little bit of God, but we need a lot of bit of prosperity. And if that's what it takes for my kids to be prosperous, then you know what? Then I want them to be prosperous. God can come later down the road somewhere else. And this is where we have found ourselves. And I'm just telling you what, I feel like as a culture, we are, with our toenails, our fingernails, holding on to the knife's edge from just dropping away because we have decided that we could do it without God. And we're going to try to put it back together without God. And so it's kind of interesting because where we maybe find ourselves is not even as worse of a culture as what Jesus was in the first century. The culture in which he found himself was actually way worse than our current culture right now. And yet, Jesus seemed to, teach something that was like, man, this is so revolutionary. This is so new. This is so amazing. And Jesus sits down with these guys and explains to them, here's how I want you to interact with other people. Here's how I want you to behave. Here's what I want to have you characterize yourselves. Here's how I want you to prioritize yourselves. Here's the values I want you to live by. And when he sat down with this group of disciples, which wasn't just the 12, it was a whole bunch of disciples, if he would have sat down and said, hey guys, this is actually going to characterize you, and just so you know, there's going to come a time when there's going to be a group of people that will call me, that they're going to be following me. They're going to be my disciples. And there's going to come a time when they're going to be sandwiched between the temple, the Jewish temple, and they're going to be sandwiched between that and the Roman Empire. And over time, the Roman Empire is going to go away. And in the city of Rome, they're going to chase Christians around and they're going to make sport of them and they're going to feed them to the lions and they're going to burn them alive. But there's going to come a day when the very circus where Nero is going to make sport of Christians, that's where they're actually going to build a building in commemoration of Peter. And there's going to be crosses fixed to almost every single building in the city of Rome. Not to signify crucifixion in Rome, but to signify one crucifixion. I think if Jesus would have told them, they would have been like, no. See, Rome is forever. Our culture is terrible. It will always be terrible. And Jesus is just like, here's what I want you to be characterized by. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 1, one day, as he, being Jesus, saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went up on the mountainside, thus the Sermon on the Mount, and sat down. His disciples gathered around him, and he began to teach them. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Okay, I was writing some notes, Jesus. What else you got? Because that doesn't seem very good. God blesses those who are poor. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Okay, well, man, this isn't starting off really good. Maybe you got some better stuff, some more revolutionary type stuff. What do you got, Jesus? God blesses those who are humble, who are meek. Your version may say meek, for they will inherit the whole earth. Okay. Yeah, I got a question. Yeah, you in the back. Yeah, Jesus. Are you from around here? Because I don't think meek's going to get it done. I don't think humble's going to get it done. I don't think meek is going to overtake. I mean, maybe you're not from around here. Maybe you don't know how it works. Maybe you haven't interacted with the Roman Empire. It just swallows people up who are humble and meek. Like, hold on. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Okay? God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Yeah. Have you ever known a time, Jesus, when anything was taken, by mercy? I mean, maybe we should have a little bit more, like fight type, language. Let's go with that. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing the right things, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you, and they will, and persecute you, and they will, and lie about you. Why would they lie about me? Not because of, things that you're doing in your life. It's because you're following me. And they say all sorts of evil things against you because, why? Because you are my followers. And because you are my followers, they will mock you, they will persecute you, and they are going to lie and say all sorts of evil things about you. Please don't be surprised by that. That should not take you by surprise. In fact, he goes on, be happy about it. Okay, on the count of three, would you just say this highlighted part with me? 1, 2, 3. Be. Oh, man. Really? For great is your reward. It awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. You're not the only ones. Okay, time out, Jesus. Let me review here. So what you're saying is you want us to be poor, sad, meek, righteous, merciful, pure, peaceful, persecuted, insulted people waiting for a reward in heaven? That's the strategy? Mm-hmm. See, I don't know, but I would imagine Jesus' audience was just like you right now. Okay, I don't think that's going to get anywhere, right? Wait, good speech, Jesus. Jesus is like, okay, I realize that maybe this doesn't make any sense to you. So let me put it in a couple of word pictures for you, so maybe you'll understand a little bit better if I use a couple of word pictures. So he goes on, you are the salt of the earth. Salt in their day was used as a preservative because they didn't have refrigeration. Did you ever get to the refrigerator and say, thank you, refrigerator, thank you. Thank you, freezer. Thank you so much for electricity. Thank you. Have you? No. Because see, we don't use salt that way. But see, they use it as a preservative. Did you realize that you are the preservative of the earth? You're like, no. I'm just a Christian. I just want to get rich and have a lot of money and go to heaven when I die. I just want to be a Christian. I don't want to preserve anything. You are the preservative of the earth. Do you realize that when you don't preserve, the culture rots? The culture decomposes. The culture stinks. That you have been strategically placed where you are to preserve the culture wherever it is God has placed you. You're like, no. Eric, we just moved here like a couple weeks ago, and we don't even like it. It's like cold. And we're looking for another place, and I don't think I'm strategically placed here. Jesus is like, no, you are strategically placed. You are the salt of the earth. You are the preservative of culture. And maybe you're in the school, maybe you're in a business, maybe you're, farming, maybe you're in the medical field, maybe you're just, doing a self-employment thing. And no matter where you find yourself, God has specifically placed you there, and you are to preserve the culture in that place. And then the way you do it is by the values that Jesus just spelled out. To say when everyone else wants to throw those values away and throw that culture away, you aren't just a Christian, you are a Jesus follower, you are a disciple of Jesus, and as such, you are the salt, you are the preservative of that place. In home, in your neighborhood, in your place of work, you're the salt of the earth. And then he kind of goes on and kind of teases out this balance that we so struggle with. But what good is salt if it has lost its flavor? Another use of salt is to add flavor. If you have something without any salt, it's like, that's bland, right? So either we don't use enough salt, that's some of us, because see, I'm just a Christian, and I'm a secret Christian. So I'm not throwing any salt out there. I'm not trying to be thirsty. I don't want to make anyone thirsty for God. I just want to be rich and prosperous and go to heaven when I die. So there's this, when you preserve, you're throwing out enough salt in your places of work, in your home, and in the town, and the businesses. You're throwing out just enough salt to make people thirsty for more. Not so little they don't even know there's salt there. And not so much that they're just like, that's gross. Right? I just did some steaks, and I wanted to try putting some salt on them and then let it sit for 24 hours. And so, man, we did that. And my first bite into that was like, woo! That was a little too much salt. A little too salty. And so I tried it again with a little less salt, and it's like, oh, man, that was awesome. I want more. That's the balance that Jesus is wanting us to strike. But you and I are preservatives of our culture. And we are to throw enough salt out to make people want more, not so little that they don't even know they're salt, and not so much that we turn them away. Can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. And then he goes on, he uses another word picture. You are the light of the world. Okay. No. No, I'm just a Christian, and I go to my work and trying to raise a family. That's all I am. I just want to go to heaven when I die, and I want to be as comfortable as possible until then. That's it. No. Jesus says, if you are a disciple of Jesus, you are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. In other words, you are strategically placed. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. That wouldn't make any sense. So why would you give your life to Jesus and then walk around as if you're just a Christian and not a Jesus follower? Why would you walk? That's like walking around, with a basket over yourself. And here's what happens. You're walking along and you see someone you gather with the crossing, and it's like, whoop, right? Whoop, little light come out. Because mostly I'm a secret Christian. I keep that light hidden. Because there's some places, at work, it's a little hostile. Right? So I'm not going to let too much light out there. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. That's what he's saying. You're like, why would you do that? Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand. Why would you place it on a stand? It's strategically placed on a stand to do what? To give light to everyone in the house. To preserve the culture. So everyone can see it. See, you have been strategically placed to be salt and light. And you will never do it hiding behind this Christian, where I just want to be prosperous and get rich and have everything I want and go to heaven when I die. And we're discovering right now in our culture the consequences of living that way. And we are discovering the consequences of being so prosperous, and yet we don't even think that we are, which is amazing. And we think we can do it without God. Crossing. I've heard from many of you, you're exhausted. You're tired. You don't know if you can keep keeping on. It's exhausting being a preservative. It's exhausting when all of the other teachers and the administration just seem like they're going over there and the kids don't care. And I just don't know if I can keep bringing it. I just don't know, because everybody at work's going this way, and I just feel like I'm the one person trying to swim upstream. And it's a battle every single day. It's a battle, and it'd be so much easier just to be a Christian and sit back and just let culture go. You have been strategically placed. You see, in the same way that salt is a preservative, in the same way that light lights up a whole room, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise you? No. Do it in such a way that they look at you and they're like, they're not doing that for them. They're doing that because their faith in their God is so strong that they're just, that's the connection. You do it in such a way that people are able to connect the dots, that it's not you, it's your Father in heaven. So, I know you're tired. I know you're exhausted. I know it's hard. And I know it feels like you're swimming upstream. It's exactly the way these guys felt. That's why Paul wrote in Galatians, he wrote this in chapter 6. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. Keep on. at just the right time, we will reap a harvest. We will reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. Crossing. We are on this earth for a blip. For just a blip. And I realize that it's so hard in the middle of all of the things going on. It's so hard to back up and see things from the 30,000-foot view. But you're here for just a short blip. You're almost home. You're almost home. So come on. Preserve. Our culture is at stake. So don't just settle for Christian. Be a disciple. Be a follower of Jesus. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I know this is easier said than done. And many of us face unbelievable hurdles and obstacles and relational difficulties. We're trying to raise kids in the middle of it. And the culture is overwhelmed. It'd be so much easier if the culture just kind of agreed with us and we were all heading in the same direction, but we kind of feel like we're the only ones. And it's so hard. So God, I pray that you would inspire the people who are watching, you would inspire the people in the room. That they have no idea the difference that they're making. So God, I pray that you would inject strength into each one of us and perseverance into each one of us to keep going and realize it's just a short period of time that we're here. May we preserve and, by your grace, improve the culture while we're here. I pray for this church that you would help us to reach that next generation. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning to all of you out there.
Yeah. All right. The biggest detriment to prosperity is prosperity.
Yeah, you want me to expound on
sure.
that?
I'm just going to throw the idea out there. Why don't you just take it from there?
You know, it leads us to a place, I mean, it's so great, but human nature, the better we have it, the more we drift from trusting God or thinking that God is the one who placed this into my hand and I have a responsibility to manage it for Him. It's like, oh, I got that on my own. It's me. And you know what? I don't even really need God because I have all this right here. And so the more stuff and more prosperous we are, it kind of becomes our own worst enemy. Yeah. So.
The verse at the end, Matthew 5:16, and I can't think of how it was worded.
Let your deeds.
Yeah.
Be
shine as doing it for your Father in heaven, or so they will bring glory to your Father in heaven.
Yeah.
That kind of spoke to me this past week. In a class that I'm taking, we were focusing on the view of individualism and I need to either work for it or things need to feed into me to make me feel good. And but the flip side of that is that as a Jesus follower, we really are not to be about us. We are to be pouring out to bring glory and honor to Christ, to God, so they will get the glory. And it doesn't go to us, but that does seem counteractive to what we're being taught in society right now.
Yeah, because culture would say, you take whatever you want and you kind of force it through the front door. And Jesus' way is never through the front door. It's always through the back door, through serving, through giving, through being generous, through thinking of others as more important than yourself, from not just looking out for my interests, but others' interests. Jesus is always the back door, and we actually, when we do that, it's not intuitive to do it because we're selfish beings, but when we do that, and we do that consistently in our workplaces, I mean, you stand out because that is not the way everyone operates, and so I think sometimes they can say, "Well, you're just a goody two shoes," and you are, so that it's about you. So if you can help people make this connection that, man, it's not me at all. Me and myself, it's ugly, but it leads to Christ.
Yeah, that's kind of hard though. It's almost like a middle child syndrome where I want to make sure that I get my fair share.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, I process it sometimes when it's just you making sure you're doing it. That's just one person trying to make sure you are okay. Rather than if you start pouring out to others and others pour into you, you have a whole lot of other people pouring in and helping you to rise rather than just being it on your own. So, it's kind of hard. As we go into this week, any final thoughts?
Well, I hope that, that you're inspired. I want you to go away encouraged, kind of pumped to hit Monday morning or whenever it is you go to work, to realize you have been strategically placed, and you have a great purpose. And I realize it is hard work, and you need inspired from time to time to just keep going. And you don't know if you're making any difference. You are, and you may not see it right away, but I just tell you what. You just keep striving, keep serving, and then let the results, leave that up to God. But you will be able to end every day knowing I did what God has put me on this earth to do, and that's a great thing.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric, and to all of you at home, thank you for joining us, and we wish you well this week.
See you next week.
See ya.